Hello, and welcome to another devlog about Warlock's Gantlet, my first-person open-world action-adventure game. Today I have several new mechanics and features to talk about, the first few of which will be about traversal, moving around in the world. Here we are, walking down a town street towards the countryside. And there are a few things here to look at. In the lower right corner, you'll see a speed indicator. It currently says 200. But if I hold down the Shift key, it'll say 400. And I hope you notice that we are moving a bit faster than before. Ostensibly twice as fast. Then, if you look in the top middle, you should see a column of variables. One called HP, the next NRG, then coin, then NRG PTN. For now, let's look at the NRG value. That stands for energy. And if I walk, nothing happens to it. But if I sprint, I hope you see that it starts ticking down with about 1 per second or thereabouts. So energy is going to be a rather important feature of Warlock's Gantlet. It is what you use when you perform certain actions. Most importantly, when you wield magic. It is essentially your mana in this game. And without it, you might be able to use your health to cast magic, but that's something we haven't really gotten to yet in the development. Now, there's another thing that I've added since last time, and that is jumping. And jumping also consumes energy. I haven't decided exactly which actions are going to use energy and which aren't, and how much. At the extreme end, nearly everything will require energy, maybe even walking. And swinging a weapon, and so on and so forth. But I will have to essentially feel what it's like to play the game. The idea is not that energy should be limiting you all the time. Like, you shouldn't actually end up in a position where you can't, run or jump or swing your weapon. That's not what I'm aiming for. What I am aiming for is a game where you have to take energy into account. You don't want to run out, because then you will end up in that situation. So, of course, the careless player will. But the aim is to limit exploration and increase risks. Like, you should be tempted to take risks of delving into a deep dungeon when you might not have all the resources necessary for it, hoping that you'll find some. Energy should be recoverable through several ways. One of them should be energy potions, which we will get to later. Others will be to sleep. Well, that will be the other main way of doing it. But depending on where you sleep, i.e. making camp outdoors or in a dungeon or at a cozy inn, etc., and how good the food you eat is, I think this should affect how much energy you replenish. Again, this will take a lot of balancing, polishing, and hopefully it will result in a game where you have to think about your moves, both the immediate moves, like in combat and immediate traversal, but also when planning ahead, when you plan an excursion into the wild or down into a dungeon, you have to think about what sort of resources you bring with you. And that'll become very meaningful in the next thing I want to show you, but I'll have to make a little cut to get to that. Here we are, out in the wilderness, next to an formidable cliff face. And that is so I can show you another new feature, which is climbing. That's something I wanted in the game for years, and I finally implemented a version of it. Let me direct you to 2 or 3 things on screen here that are useful to keep track of as I talk about this. In the left-hand, shall we say, column of information, there are the 2 words piton and fall. Yes, that is how you pronounce piton. In the top right corner, you will soon see the word climbing appear. And now it disappeared. If you look at the word fall, you see that there's a number next to it. When I enter climbing mode, as indicated in the top right, that number starts ticking up, or ticking. Whenever it goes over 90, I exit climbing mode. That's because it indicates that I've lost my grip. So losing my grip means falling, but I was on the ground, so I didn't fall. I just lost my climbing ability, so to speak. Now, oh, you saw I fall there. I fell there, but not all the way to the ground. That's because I had hammered a piton into the wall. Next to the word piton, a large number has appeared, and now another. That number is the absolute elevation of the piton in question. A piton is a little metal spike that climbers use. They hammer it into the rock when they climb, and then they anchor themselves to that with a piece of rope. You see that I fall here quite a bit, but I'm caught by the rope. And it's a good idea to anchor yourself continuously as you climb. Quite soon I should reach the top. Here we go. Now look at the piton number. As I exit climbing mode, it reverts to 0. That actually means that the pitons are cleared. I don't have them anymore and I can't reuse them. Precisely how I will handle that, I don't know. If I'm going to have them permanent or semi-permanent. I don't think they'll be permanent. That'll be too much in the long run, but semi-permanent perhaps, so that you can reuse them if if you're in the same area. But I don't know. Currently, I just clear them. I don't want this climbing mechanic to be super complicated and involved, but I want it. So I'm sort of developing it as I go. My current approach to this is that the climbing mechanic is, above everything else, a resource management mechanic. You might have noticed that it did not consume any energy, but it will. It will consume a lot of energy to climb. And if you want to secure yourself, you need pitons and rope, and possibly also a hammer. Those cost money, and they also will occupy, not space, but weight. I'm thinking that my inventory will actually very likely be only weight-based, but quite limited, relatively speaking. So, of course, you'll be able to carry plenty of pitons and rope if you want to, but that will limit how many other things you can carry, such as armor and weapons and ammunition and potions. So, it depends on how much climbing you plan on doing or think that you might be doing. And climbing will also be relevant in dungeons once we get there. You might find chasms or deep wells or something like that, or for that matter, something that extends above you, a cliff inside or tall wall in a dungeon, and the only way to explore would be to climb. So I want to incentivize the player to, give them opportunity for exploration, and there are many advantages. You might find interesting things, or just get a look at the view, which is not just pretty. I hope you think it's pretty. But it's useful when you want to orient yourself and perhaps even use it to find stuff around you. That is my hope. So there will. I call this mesa Cake Mountain because it's a big round shape. If you fly up a bit here in developer flying mode, you might see what I mean. I actually had it tiered before, so it looked even more like a sort of wedding cake. That's where the name came from. Now, another feature which should make climbing more interesting, is one I'll show you right now. If you have a look at my health point total, which is no longer 1,000, it's 997. But look at it as I hop off here. And actually, I perish. I am now a corpse, a walking one. Walking, running, jumping, flying corpse. I have fall damage. Fall damage is calculated by how fast you're going vertically, well, downwards, when you hit the ground. I guess it's very difficult to hit the ground if you're going upwards, so not really a consideration. You will take damage as well if you fall and you're on a rope, if you fall far enough. There is a certain... I think we can show that. If you just fall off a little building, you won't take damage. There is a certain level of that you can fall, or a certain elevation distance that you can fall without taking damage. I position myself on the roof here. I think I should be able to fall off here without taking further damage. Let's see. Yes, happily. If I fall from the highest part of the building, will I also not take damage? No, I took a little bit of damage there. As intended, but, you know, of course you don't want to take that damage when you jump or do somewhat athletic, acrobatic things, but it should also not be too lenient. And yes, you take damage if you fall on a rope, if you fall too far, even if the rope catches you. I think that's realistic. So don't be too stingy with the pitons and such. Now, one last thing to show with the climbing. Whoops, I have to lower my speed here a bit. There we go. You can enter climbing mode whenever, if you're standing on firm ground. You will move very slowly then, because you're climbing along the ground. So it's not advisable. But it is advisable when you are, you want to start climbing down. You must be able to do that. And I secure myself with a piton. You only need one when you go down, because it's always above you, and you will never fall. As long as you're underneath the piton. Now, if I enter another one, you'll see the number next to piton go down, because it's lower. So if you're going up, don't, as long as the piton is above you, you should not put in another one. Just hop off here and fly back up. Now, you won't, I don't think I'll show you precisely what your elevation is and that of the piton. That's not how that's going to work. I'm going to, probably the piton, the last piton that you put in will be visible in the world, but I haven't gotten to that point yet. It should be indicated somehow. And in fact, when you climb, and if I do that again here, secure myself, doesn't matter. You can move sideways along the wall, and you can move a distance away from the wall as well. I've been quite generous there, so it looks like I'm flying here, but I can't go. I'm going away now. But, I can't go further than this. That seems like a long distance from the wall if you look down, because it is. But it's not that far away, actually. I don't want the player to feel super restricted when they are climbing. I mean, they're already going very slowly and they're very exposed. So, I'm trying to be a bit kind. And the piton is essentially following me around. That's another kindness from me. So I guess there will be some sort of an icon of where the piton is, and it'll follow you. Just be on your same column in the world, so to speak. Now, I hope that's enough about climbing and falling. And I think that's all of the traversal news covered. Let's show one more thing before we cut again. That's this big blue thing out at the horizon. I have implemented an edge of the world, so to speak. There were many ways that I could have handled that. I could have just let it remain as it were, just the world ended and then there was space, empty space, and had an invisible wall there. That's how I had it until quite recently. But I felt that that felt a bit too weird and artificial. So I decided to try and create an endless expanse. I am now off the game map, and so, you know, whereas the whole map that you can play on, or that is the world, has unique information, or at least, yes, yeah, it is unique information on each tile. The ocean does not, it's just one repeating tile. So you can walk across it, not forever, because eventually you'll reach, your coordinate will reach a state of integer overflow or underflow, which means that the value representing your coordinate can't go any higher or lower. But you will have to travel very far for that to happen. I'm sure that your character will die from starvation before you do that. But who knows? Maybe some enterprising player will be able to do that. And what will happen then? I don't know. Will the game crash? Will you teleport? I'm not sure. But it might be exciting to try. The point is, at least I have this now, and I'm quite happy with it. To me, it makes the world feel more substantial, more real. And I like this solution because it doesn't restrict the liberty of the player in a way that feels artificial, like an invisible wall or a weirdly tall cliff face or a really dense forest that you just can't get through. Currently, the trees don't have collision, but I think they will. I just haven't implemented that yet. Again, I say I think they will, because Daggerfall, for example, doesn't have collision with trees, and it works quite well. So there are pros and cons. Like, it could be annoying to have to navigate between the trees, maybe. But on the other hand, you know, you kind of expect a tree to stop a fireball, or if you hide behind a tree and you still get shot, that might feel a bit annoying. So I am leaning towards having them become physical obstacles. Whether they will be climbable or not, I haven't decided yet. But that is something I've considered, certainly. All right, let's move on to something else now. Here we are, observing a lich who is moving around in a rather odd manner. That's one of the new things. Liches now move around. They also spawn, somewhat at random. Currently the spawning is very rough, as many things are. It just spawns liches at a certain distance from you, if there are not enough of them according to the program. But at least they can appear whenever, which is interesting. And again, they move around. They have a very, very rudimentary AI. And another thing you might notice is that this lich does not walk over the edge here, no matter how many times it tries. I've done something I've wanted to do ever since I started making this game, and that's to prevent the NPCs from walking over edges. That's pretty neat, I think. They cannot, if I tell them not to, they can't voluntarily walk over an edge. Unless the drop is small. They check if the drop is you know, low enough, then they are okay with walking over the edge, but otherwise not. But we can still push it off with you know, the shockwave from an explosion, like so. And now he's free. Isn't that nice? There are more, of course. Here's another fellow. Who also seems stuck. Shall we liberate him? I've turned off the damage or injury from explosions in order to facilitate demonstrating that. And if we move around a little bit across the landscape, we might find a herd of liches. Yeah, it's like that. Which is quite interesting to look at. You can further herd them with explosions, but of course that would be wasteful and inefficient or ineffective now that the explosions don't do any damage. I will restore that soon because I need to show you another behavior of sorts. Here we see another herd of liches making their way across the landscape. And I am keeping my distance a bit initially here because these liches are in fact aggressive. If I approach within their range, they will start shooting at me. Hopefully. Yes, there we go. Fireballs start flying. Now this is very rudimentary implemented, so they will fire at me regardless of whether they are looking in my direction and regardless of whether they have line of sight, which will often result in them shooting or trying to shoot me through a wall or a cliff, which also often results in what we term a face rocket or face fireball in the business, which will often kill them rather than me. And they don't aim very well, although sometimes they do hit. I go down here to, yep, there we go, ground level. You will see that that's true, but I can of course fight back. Look at that. Lich left behind a stack of cash. Guess it was going shopping. I can pick that up. Keep an eye on my coin variable. It went up by 24. Currently they can drop somewhere between 1 and 25 coin when they perish. Let's see how much this one left behind. Just the one. And I'm going to do a bit of collecting here. Ow. Yeah. I am just as dead as these liches at this point. If you look at my health point total, those fireballs are no joke. Ouch. But happily, it doesn't matter. I can keep playing as much as I want. Let's see. That was rather meager. Let's take to the skies. Go hunting for more. There we go. It's a bit difficult to steer when I have high speed like that. Now I have 100 coin. That should be enough. I will go take refuge here up on Cake Mountain, so I can show you final new feature in peace. Slow down a little bit and have a look at this beautiful view again. There we go. And now enter the shop. This is the largest thing I've been working on since last devlog. I had a working shop before. I'm sure I've shown you some screenshots of that, but I had to re-implement it, port it from the previous version of the game. Obviously, I could reuse quite a bit of code, but I had to change a lot as well. That's why it took time. But now it is fully re-implemented, at least functionally speaking. The graphics here are all placeholder. Well, except for these item sprites. I only have two. I have the energy potion sprite and an oil sprite, which is placeholder for all of the other ones. So this here is the shop's inventory. You can see how much cash I have there. It says copper, but I might just change that to coin to keep it less explicit. And there is some ability to scroll through here. In the final game, there will be different shops for different things, but this shop just has everything. Again, the only thing that's useful right now are the energy potions. Everything else is meaningless. But let's get an energy potion. Actually, it says here, cost 30 and per 30. So if I pay 30, I'll get 30 of them, which is a good deal. Probably won't be that cheap in the final game. I can get 3 batches of these. And then they appear here in my... this is my proposed purchases. This is my inventory, I have nothing. And this is proposed sales. So I can close this trade, giving 90 for 90. So I have 90 energy potions. Now I can also actually sell. And this is the proposed sales, as I said. So I can say that I want to sell a couple of these, or 60, and you'll see that the trade cost is now negative, and if I complete this purchase, I will have 70 coin rather than 10. Let's do that. I still have enough energy potions to show their effectiveness. The neat thing about this is that this interface, or like the code for this interface, is not useful only for the shop. This is also going to be the basis for all all the menus in the game. You know, main menu, options menu, save load menu, stuff like that. Let's leave the shop for now. And you can see that my energy is under 900. I can expend more by shooting fireballs. And then I can, since I have energy potions, looks like I have 30 of them, drink one and I regain 100 energy per potion. Which means that finally, again, I have a full gameplay loop. A meaningful one, because if you don't have energy, you can't actually shoot. Nor can you jump or run. But I can replenish energy by hunting liches, which there don't seem to be very many right now. Let's see. I think going northeast here. Yes, here we go. See if we can get some of these. And of course, I also call that an economic loop, or a working economy, by which I can earn money and I can spend money on something useful. I'll accelerate myself a little bit. Cheat to catch up with this lich. There we go. Full gameplay loop. And you can fail at this by running out of energy and not having any money. And but as long as you do replenish yourself, you can keep going. The enemies respawn continuously. And by the way, they despawn if you go too far away from them. All of these systems that I've talked about here, apart from maybe jumping and running, will be refined. Well, I suppose jumping and running might also be refined, you know, with regards to how high you jump and how fast you run, and etc. But I hope this is a little bit exciting, because there are a lot of meaningful, very meaningful mechanics here. Going forward, I will quite soon implement at least a rudimentary options menu. Because right now, all of the options like draw distance they're just handled through direct input. Oh, you can see now some liches have spawned atop Cake Mountain here. We can knock, well, we could have knocked him off, but he died before he fell. Yes, menus. Other new things coming up are NPCs in the towns. Some sort of a melee weapon, very likely a sword, since I started making a rough sprite of that a while ago. I think you saw that in one of the quite recent devlogs. These are things coming up, and seems that I'll be able to keep this one devlog per month frequency. It's going pretty well so far, so look forward to that in, I guess, May. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to keep tabs on me more frequently, you can find me on my Twitch channel, live streaming game dev 2 to 3 times a week, mostly during the weekends. And you will also find links to my BlueSky account, where you can see some updates. I often post little screenshots there and a bit of text. And I always announce when I go live on Twitch on BlueSky, as well as on Discord. I don't know if the Discord link is in the description, but you should find it via my Twitch account, at least. With that, I bid you a lovely remainder of this day, and goodbye.